You won't believe these, but sometimes the simplest solutions come from the most unexpected places. Imagine this: 15 of the brightest engineers, each armed with years of experience and degrees from the best universities, spent weeks trying to fix a problem. They debated, coded, tested, rebuilt, yet every single attempt failed. The tension in the office was so thick you could almost feel it pressing on your chest. And then just 30 seconds later, Nanny, someone with no background in engineering, walked in, saw what was wrong, and solved the whole thing as if it were child's play. What happened next not only shocked everyone in the room but also changed the life of a single dad CEO forever. The story begins with Armin, a 38-year-old single father and the CEO of a growing tech startup. His company was on the brink of something massive via a breakthrough device that could revolutionize how people connected their smart homes. Investors were circling, the media was buzzing, his employees believed they were building something historic. But behind all the excitement was Armin's hidden struggle, raising his 6-year-old daughter, Asa, alone after losing his wife 2 years earlier. Every board meeting, every late night at the office, every sleepless hour worrying about payroll, he carried it all while still trying to be a father. He loved his daughter more than anything, but sometimes he felt like he was failing at both jobs. The device they had been working on was brilliant in theory, but it had one critical flaw: it couldn't synchronize across multiple platforms. That flaw made it useless. 15 engineers, some of the best minds money could buy, worked day and night. They ran simulations, rewrote algorithms, replaced hardware, argued with each other, stayed away from their families. And yet the problem only grew bigger. Investors were getting impatient. Deadlines loomed. Armin felt the weight of his entire company, his employees' livelihoods, and his daughter's future on his shoulders. And all the while, he carried the guilt of knowing he wasn't home enough for Asa. One night, as the clock ticked past midnight, the engineers crowded around the conference table in frustration. Armin sat in silence, his hand on his forehead, staring at the blinking red error message on the test screen. That screen had become his nightmare. He was about to tell his team to go home when the glass door creaked open. Asa's nanny, Miriam, stepped inside holding the little girl's hand. "She couldn't sleep without seeing you," Miriam whispered softly. Asa ran to him and hugged his neck tight, her small voice asking, "Baba, why are you always so tired?" That moment broke him a little. He hugged her close, whispering apologies he didn't know how to put into words. Then Miriam's eyes wandered to the test device on the table. She tilted her head, frowning, and said something that made every engineer in the room go silent. "Why do you have that piece upside down?" They all froze. Upside down? The engineers rushed to check. Indeed, one critical component had been mounted in reverse. It wasn't a software bug, not a coding flaw, not a high-level system error. It was something as simple as orientation, overlooked again and again by experts too caught up in their own brilliance to notice the obvious. Miriam walked closer, turned the piece with her hand, pressed the restart button, and within seconds a broken bar the device worked flawlessly. The screen that had haunted Armin now glowed green. The engineers stared in disbelief. Some even laughed in shock. Armin, however, stood motionless. In 30 seconds, the woman who looked after his daughter had solved what 15 experts couldn't. But for him, the real revelation wasn't just about the device, it was about humility, perspective, and where true wisdom comes from. He looked at Miriam, and then at Asa smiling proudly beside her, and felt tears burn his eyes. The next morning, instead of rushing into investor calls, Armin called a meeting with his team. He told them that brilliance was not about titles, degrees, or expensive skills, it was about perspective. Sometimes the best solutions come from ordinary people who simply see things differently. He gave Miriam full credit, and though she shyly resisted, he announced a bonus for her that left her speechless. More importantly, he set a new culture in his company. No hierarchy of voices. From that day on, every opinion mattered, whether it came from a senior engineer, an intern, or even a visitor. The story went viral once it leaked to the press. Headlines read, "Nanny fixes tech flaw in 30 seconds. A CEO changes entire company culture." Investors, instead of being disappointed, were moved by Armin's honesty and the humility of his leadership. His startup not only survived but soared, attracting funding and respect across the industry. But the most powerful moment wasn't the company's success, it was at home. That night, after all the chaos settled, Armin tucked Tayza into bed. She held his hand and whispered, "Baba, now you'll come home more, right?" He kissed her forehead and promised, not as a CEO, but as a father who finally understood what mattered most. And so the story leaves us with this: sometimes life's biggest problems aren't solved by the smartest person in the room but by the simplest perspective. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a leader can do is set aside pride, listen with humility, and remember why they started in the first place.